Yes. I'm a conservator of time-based media art, and I work for the Staatsgalerie Stuttgart, a museum in the south of Germany. I won't say much about the Staatsgalerie, but I will give you some brief information about my working environment. The Staatsgalerie Stuttgart was opened in 1843. The museum's collections include more than 5,000 paintings and sculptures, 400,000 graphic prints, and around 150,000 archival documents. Its time-based media art collection encompasses more than 1,700 objects. About 500 objects are videos and films. Around a third of these are artistic works, and 2/3 are documentations. The collection of audio recordings contains more than 1,200 objects. About 70% of these recordings are artistic productions, the rest are precious documents. My contribution today, as discussed with Alessandra in advance, will be dedicated to the topic of analog advocacy, and will continue to emphasize the need for such advocacy with the help of a few examples, with a focus on the most authentic presentation possible. But let's start with the artworks. And an artist that needs no introduction. A special multiple in the musical field is Mozart Mix by John Cage, the artist's homage to the composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. It was published in 1991 by German curator, publisher, and museum director René Block in an edition of 35. The hinged wooden box contains 25 endless cassettes featuring performances of a variety of compositions by Mozart and 5 portable desktop cassette recorders with built-in speakers. The listener was originally encouraged to select 5 tapes at random and to play them simultaneously. The work relies on the chance configuration of Mozart's works as they merge and overlap to form a new composition. But before I continue, here's an audio sample. For demonstration purposes, I've created a multi-track recording with 5 tracks and panned them to simulate room acoustics. The original listening experience of John Cage's Mozart Mix was described as an interesting experiment in simultaneous asynchronous loops, but please judge for yourself. And please take a look at the waveform of track number 1. You will distinguish a 1-minute loop. It is actually the intro to the Papagena-Papageno duet from Mozart's Magic Flute that will be repeated. But just start there. You get the picture. The Staatsgalerie Stuttgart acquired Mozart Mix from the Gallery René Block in 2018. In the Anglophone museum world, the involvement of conservators before acquisition of time-based media artworks is standard practice. Unfortunately, in the specific case of John Cage's Mozart Mix, conservators were not part of the acquisition process. Questions concerning the long-term preservation of the artwork, the authentic installation, or the technical obsolescence of the components could only be dealt with after the completion of the acquisition. In addition to the components in the wooden box, we received 25 CDRs as well as limited specifications for the installation of the artwork using CD players. We also received a notice that was added to the manual. I quote, "Please note the following. The endless cassettes of this edition were produced in the years 1991, 1992, and therefore extremely fragile. These should not be exposed to longer periods of playback. No guarantee can be given for the durability of those audio carriers." During the quality control of the artwork, we analyzed the CDRs and did a data backup of these carriers. The CDRs were created according to the Red Book standard. As a result, contain stereo audio data with 44.1 kilohertz sampling rate and 16-bit resolution. All of the recordings show a very significant noise floor, as you surely have noticed during the audio sample. Maybe this is related to the production of the endless cassettes, or it can be traced back to the first digitization. That was initiated by Gallery René Bloch. Another problem occurred during quality control. Without being able to play back the original tapes and the CDRs not being properly marked by the gallery, we are not able to match both carriers. By comparing the 25 optical discs, we documented different lengths. For example, the CDR with the Papagena-Papageno duet, track number 1 in the multi-track recording, is 59 minutes and 52 seconds long. Track number 2 has a length of 61 minutes and 33 seconds. So it is obvious that the length of track number 1, as well as the waveform proof this, that while digitizing the original tapes, several loops were recorded. The CDRs are not digital images of the endless cassettes. TDK, the Japanese company, produced these endless cassettes in different lengths. 1-minute tapes, which would fit the duet, as well as 3, 6, and 12-minute tapes. The first digitization commissioned by the Galerie René Bloch was certainly carried out to the best of the knowledge of the publisher. René Bloch himself also informed us about the creative process that led to the Mozart mix. I quote, "The original recordings were created while transferring audio snippets from vinyl records onto the endless cassettes. The digital version, as René Bloch calls it, was produced around 2010, but the publisher couldn't give us further information about the realization. It remains unclear how this first digitization was conducted and which workflow was utilized to create the CDRs. As I mentioned before, we also received specifications for the installation of the artwork using CDRs. I quote, "Simultaneous playback of 5 CDs must be performed while using 5 CD players that are spatially dispersed in the exhibition room, preferably CD players with built-in speakers." Another note by the gallery caught our attention. I quote, "Visitors should not change the CDs. This should be done probably several times during a week by authorized staff." This alternative presentation is acceptable, but questionable, not only with regard to the sound experience. How is this to rate in respect to the authentic presentation? Is the visitor only a listener, or is the visitor still able to influence the composition, the sound experience, the Mozart mix? While doing research on the artwork, I found this picture. It was taken at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Australia in 2006 during an exhibition called Multiplicity. As you can see at this exhibition, the visitors were able to freely choose the cassettes and to independently operate the portable cassette recorders. John Cage created already in 1969 a sound installation called 33 1/3, where he enabled the visitor to interact, in my opinion, similar to the Mozart mix. 33 1/3 consists of 100 vinyl records and 12 record players that are spatially dispersed in the exhibition space. The visitor is a crucial component here. Asked about the missing interaction while presenting the artwork with CD players, René Bloch answers, "John Cage didn't give a specific manual for the installation. It was important to him that the sound sources should be dispersed in the exhibition room and that the 5 Mozart recordings should be played simultaneously. It is not a visual artwork, and the newly created sound experience is the core of the sound installation. The technical realization is not restricted." End of quote. So I'm just gonna press play. Is that okay? So these endless cassettes in different lengths are still up for sale. We're able to buy some tapes, as you can see, and we started testing. Our next goal is to create a set of exhibition copies. Should we succeed, this would certainly be preferred and the most authentic solution. In combining this approach with hardware storage as a preservation strategy to be able to maintain the playback equipment, the life cycle of this artwork and its authentic display could be prolonged. Alterations can't be avoided and change needs to be addressed. I assume John Cage would have liked that. As long as installations can be presented with authentic playback equipment, this should be supported and the specialist know-how documented and transmitted. Through artworks like Mozart Mix, younger generations can be introduced to those audio carriers, their handling, haptics, and functionality. Doesn't work? Beides. So it may take 6 minutes again until we hear something, but it's fine. Mozart Mix is still a work in progress. A new digitization of the original endless cassettes, according to the actual archiving standards, is mandatory. However, as events sometimes come thick and fast in museum operations, we installed the work just a few weeks ago in accordance with the specifications of the Galerie René Bloch. But we will continue to work on an alternative, more authentic form of presentation together with our curatorial team. So I'm going to just continue. This is the Musiktruhe by Swiss artist Dieter Roth. Musiktruhe is the German word for jukebox. The jukebox is equipped with 59 7-inch records. 4 of them are very limited records by Dieter Roth. This assemblage was created for the opening party of the artist's 1979 solo exhibition at the Staatsgalerie Stuttgart. The jukebox only became part of the Staatsgalerie's collection in 2016, despite a mechanical defect. The jukebox is a model from a product line manufactured by NSM, 1970 to 1982. In 2015, the former owner borrowed the Musiktruhe for an exhibition. The defect was discovered after it was returned. The selection mechanism can be operated via the control unit, but the disc will not play. There are several possible reasons for this malfunction. Defective fuses or gumming up of the mechanical parts, as well as porous round belts, can impair the functionality. Last year, we were able to purchase a used intact jukebox. This may enable us to obtain spare parts in the future. However, it is a slightly different model, which can be clearly seen here in the direct comparison on the control unit. In the following short clip, you can see the original playback sequence. In this case too, it seems essential to us to restore the original functionality and thus the auditory and interactive aspect of the artwork. In a further step, of course, the original vinyl records would also have to be replaced with exhibition copies. To exhibit this jukebox in a non-working state wouldn't live up to the artist's reputation, nor would it be easy to communicate to visitors. The article, The Care and Handling of Recorded Sound Materials, by Gilles Saint-Laurent from 1996, begins as follows. Sound recordings are machine-readable artifacts. They are documents for which the integrity of the information they contain is directly related to the artifact's physical well-being. This sentence describes recordings on analog sound carriers as well as, in a figurative sense, digitized recordings and digitally generated audio files. In the case of an artwork that lives through the use of analog playback technology, the physical well-being of the playback device is added to the dimension as a component, resulting in artworks of huge complexity. The long-term preservation and authentic presentation of these artworks are certainly our priority. However, these goals are not necessarily achieved at the same time. Current archiving standards often do not cover the requirements for an authentic presentation, which ultimately only emerge through detailed analysis of the individual artwork and subsequently through a well-founded restoration concept. If we want to enable authentic presentations in the future, we still need to develop individual conservation strategies for these objects. So actually this will repeat in 6 minutes, because the tape that is the loop tape that you can still buy is a 6-minute tape. We'll see, maybe later on. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to a find from the last few months. Its treasure hunt was achieved in close collaboration with the Stuttgart Study Program, together with Nadja Walaskowitz, who will have a talk tomorrow. At the beginning of the year, we began digitizing a collection of 120 open reel recordings. This collection includes 4 well-preserved tapes labeled NG Pike, Studio Bender Köln, circa 1960. I don't need to say much about Namjoon Pike, the father of video art, either. However, there are only a few sources that deal with his early compositions and performances. Some scores and pictures, here for example from the Katalog Aktion Vernissagen Personen by the photographer Manfred Lewe, have been transmitted. This photo from 1959 was labeled Pike's Instruments by Lewe. Pike was able to work in the WDR's studio for electronic music from the early 1960s. The writer and composer Hans G. Helms, who also worked there, described Pike's approach in 2001 as follows. He picked up all the scraps of tape lying around on the floor and used them to compose pieces at home, put them together. The composer adds, "To be honest, I no longer know what became of the pieces." At first glance, you might assume that this recording is damaged. However, it is a sound collage in which different types of tape and materials have been assembled on one reel. This results in different signs of aging, which characterize the appearance of the tape. During the examination of the open reel recordings, we discovered different markings on the back of the tapes. These tapes therefore contain specific metadata that is unique and exclusive to the original carrier. In order to capture this metadata in its entirety and to preserve it independently of the life of the original carriers, we decided to document the tapes through video during the playback process. An identification of these recordings has not yet been fully completed. Pike presumably used them as part of a performance. It remains exciting, and we will continue our research. Without the preservation and maintenance of the playback devices, and in this case the very specific expertise and the great exchange in the specialist field, such objects cannot be recovered and made accessible or communicated in an understandable way. I'm happy to repeat the words of Richard Reinhardt and John Ippolito here. Only you, the preservation community, this community, can prevent the end of history. But now I would like to show you about 2 minutes of a recording that has not been heard by a wider audience since the early 1960s. And please pay attention to the markings. That's it. Thanks for very much.
Any questions? Anything burning? Okay, in the back. Just a minute. This one. This one as well. Yeah. Okay. Hold on, get behind. Yeah. Thank you.
I haven't understand the main question. Who pay for that to be done, and who pay for that to be restored, and who is interested to pay for this generally?
You mean the restoration for it, or the
First, who paid for the original, I can't say masterpiece, but for original thing, and then who paid for restoration, and what is the financial benefits of this restoration, and who pay for that?
So actually it's in our collection. So the museum is interested in safeguarding those artworks. So it's what we do. We preserve those artworks, and who as for the I mean, you mean for what? For the cage or for the pike open reel? I need to be more specific. Which one of those artworks? They are all in our collection, so it's all our goal to maintain them and to preserve them.
Thank you. Anything else? Wonderful. That was great. Thank you so much for sharing.